They laughed at my ugly house and skipped my party. Now I own everything they wanted, and my grandma cut them off completely. They laughed at me in the middle of a restaurant. That's how this starts. Full volume, careless, jaw wide open laughter. Not strangers, my family. Right there, in front of a table of people, a waiter standing frozen beside us, my hand still holding the house keys I had just offered them to see my new place. It was supposed to be a celebration dinner. I had told them I had a surprise. I was glowing, practically vibrating with excitement. I said I bought my first home, and instead of cheers or a hug, I got that hideous laughter. Then my sister blurted out, "What did you buy?" "A garage?" And they all joined in like it was the best joke they'd heard all year. I was 29. I had worked every job I could find for the last 9 years. Early mornings, night shifts, filling in on weekends when everyone else called off. I never asked anyone for a cent. Not my mom, not my dad, not anyone. I packed lunch every day. I skipped trips. I wore shoes until they had holes in the soles. All for one thing, so I could finally stop renting and buy my own home. And this is how they reacted. I just sat there, swallowing hard, trying not to let it show on my face. I wasn't going to cry, not in front of them, not in public, not while they kept laughing like I was a clown who had delivered the punchline too early. But inside, I was already breaking apart, and I hadn't even told them where it was yet. That came later, when my mom finally asked, her voice full of sarcasm, "So, which part of the city did you find this treasure in?" I told them, and they laughed harder. It was a fixer-upper in West Allerton, an old neighborhood most people had written off years ago. Not dangerous, just forgotten. But I saw something different in it. The house had been built in 1958, back when homes had thick walls and personality. The yard was overgrown. The kitchen had green tile, and the wallpaper looked like it hadn't been touched since Elvis was alive. But the bones were good. And more importantly, it was mine. But at that dinner table, it felt like nothing. Worse than nothing. My sister Bianca rolled her eyes and leaned over to her husband, whispering loud enough for me to hear. "She really thinks she's doing something." He snorted and said, "Well, it fits her." My mother just sipped her wine and said, "You should have asked Bianca for advice. She has taste." I stared at the tablecloth, tracing invisible patterns with my fingertip, and wondered if any of them would ever see me as someone worth being proud of. Let me back up, though. Let me tell you how I got to that moment. I work as a logistics coordinator for a regional supply firm in Milwaukee. It's not glamorous. My desk faces a wall, my lunch breaks are short, and the most exciting part of my day is when the freight tracker updates on time. But it pays steady. And for nearly a decade, I saved every dollar I didn't absolutely need. No family help, no boyfriend, no cosigner. Just me, scraping together a future one paycheck at a time. 2 months before that dinner disaster, my old college roommate Tessa, who's now a real estate agent, called me out of the blue. She sounded breathless. "You still looking for a place?" she asked. I told her I was, but I had pretty strict limits. She interrupted me. "No, listen to me. There's this house. The sellers are desperate. They're moving to Oregon in 3 weeks, and they just slashed the price again." I asked her what was wrong with it, because there's always something. Tessa paused for a second and said, "Okay, it's ugly. The kitchen's from the Nixon era. The backyard looks like a jungle. The pipes need inspection. But it's solid. And cheap. I'm talking once-in-a-decade cheap." She sent me photos. And I'll be honest, my stomach turned a little. The bathroom tile was the color of split pea soup. The living room had this weird mural of horses. Horses. But beneath all that chaos, I saw it. The shape of a home that could be mine. The arch in the hallway. The old oak banister. The deep windowsills. It was begging for a second chance. And so was I. I said yes. The mortgage process nearly killed me. They needed everything. Paperwork from jobs I barely remembered, calls to banks I hadn't used in years. Every day I expected a phone call telling me the deal had fallen through. But it didn't. And the day I held those keys in my hand, I sat in the empty living room and cried for 20 minutes straight. It was mine. Every creaky floorboard. Every rusted hinge. Mine. I kept it all a secret. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell Bianca. I didn't tell anyone from work. I wanted the moment to be mine first, before anyone could ruin it. So I planned a reveal. Not just a phone call or a casual mention. I booked a reservation at this Italian place my parents liked. I told them I had something big to share. I even wore the one nice dress I owned. I imagined the look on their faces. I thought they'd finally say something kind. But I got laughter. I got ridicule. I got told I had no taste, no vision, and no business buying anything without Bianca's approval. And you know the worst part? They didn't even ask when they could see it. They didn't even pretend. So I sat there at that table, my pasta going cold, while they planned Bianca's baby shower. I hadn't even known she was pregnant. When the check came, I paid for my meal and left before dessert. I didn't say goodbye. I got in my car, locked the doors, and screamed until my throat hurt. And when the screaming stopped, I made a promise to myself. The first morning in my new house, I woke up to the sound of birds and silence. No neighbors yelling. No footsteps above me. No music through the wall. Just the creak of old pipes and the hum of something real, something mine. It didn't matter that the floorboards needed refinishing or that the kitchen smelled like damp linoleum. I had slept on an air mattress in the center of an empty living room, and I had never felt more powerful in my life. But that feeling didn't last long. I told myself that I wouldn't let their laughter live in my head, but it crept in anyway. Every time I looked at the cracked tiles, I heard Bianca's voice again. She really thinks she's doing something. I tried turning up music to drown it out, but even the bass couldn't cover the echoes of that dinner. They were planted like rot in the drywall. So I got to work. I ripped down the ancient wallpaper in the dining room, only to find another layer underneath. Pink, floral, and sticky with decades of sadness. It took me 2 full weekends just to get to the original wall. I bled through my gloves, pulled something in my shoulder, and almost set my microwave on fire trying to strip paint with a heat gun I didn't know how to use. I worked like someone possessed, because I was. The first time I sent Tessa a photo of the living room with fresh paint and a rug, she replied with a single line. Holy hell, it actually looks expensive. That was all I needed to keep going. The place was slowly becoming unrecognizable. I swapped out light fixtures one by one. I taught myself how to retile a bathroom with a YouTube video and a rented wet saw. I went to bed every night sore, bruised, and covered in dust. But when I woke up, I felt like I was waking up in a promise I had made to myself years ago. Then, out of nowhere, my mom texted me. No greeting, no apology. Just, when is Bianca's baby shower RSVP due? I stared at the screen, waiting for something more. Maybe a follow-up. Maybe a check-in. Nothing came. That was it. No mention of my house. No questions about how the renovations were going. No acknowledgement that I had disappeared from family dinner for nearly a month. I replied, I don't know. I'm not invited. A full day passed before she replied. You can come. It's open. That's when it hit me. Open. Like a public event. Not family. Just whoever. I didn't respond. The next week, Bianca posted a photo of her baby registry on social media. I wasn't tagged, but she made sure to list everything in ridiculous detail. A luxury bassinet, $900. Designer wall decals, $500. A crystal lamp shaped like a swan. And in the comments? My parents, gushing. You deserve the best. We'll take care of the stroller, darling. You've always had such exquisite taste. I sat on my porch that night with a bottle of cheap wine and scrolled through every comment until my thumb hurt. Not once did I see my name. So I decided to host a housewarming. I cleaned like a madwoman. I scrubbed the baseboards with a toothbrush. I ordered catering from Rocco's Bistro, their favorite Italian place. I got lasagna for Dad, gnocchi for Mom, Caesar salad for Bianca. I bought 2 kinds of wine, opened the good candles, and even spent money I didn't really have on fresh flowers. I wanted it to be perfect, not just to show them what I'd done, but because, for once, I wanted them to step into my world instead of the other way around. I texted Mom and Bianca the invite 3 days in advance. Saturday at 6 p.m. No RSVP needed. Just come. Bianca didn't respond. Mom replied, we'll see. Depends how your father's back is. That Saturday, I had the whole place glowing. I wore a deep green dress that made my skin look brighter and my eyes sharper. I waited by the window like a kid on prom night. At 6:15, I checked my phone. No messages. At 6:45, I lit the candles. At 7:12, I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. I tried Bianca next. Same result. I told myself not to panic. Maybe they got caught up. Maybe they were just late. But then, at 7:34, I got the photo. Bianca had posted it to her stories. Her, my parents, Darren, and Darren's parents all sitting in some candlelit booth at a steakhouse uptown. Glasses raised. Everyone smiling. The caption read, much better vibes here. No mention of me. I nearly dropped my phone. I stood in the middle of my perfectly lit, perfectly arranged dining room, surrounded by untouched food and flickering light. And for the second time in 6 weeks, I cried like someone had punched a hole through my chest. I didn't understand it. I had done everything right. I had worked. I had saved. I had asked for nothing. And when I finally had something of my own, they spat on it like it was a joke. Like I was the joke. The doorbell rang while I was still wiping my face. I opened it expecting no one. But there she was, Grandma May. Raincoat over her shoulders, purse in one hand, something wrapped in silver paper in the other. Traffic was a nightmare, she said. But I made it. She stepped inside, looked around, and froze. Her eyes scanned the room. Fresh paint, clean lines, soft light, and then landed on me. You've been crying. I nodded. She asked me if anyone else came. I shook my head. She said nothing for a long moment. Then she handed me the gift. Inside was a tall, delicate porcelain vase with hand-painted gold vines. I recognized it immediately. It had always sat on her fireplace growing up, something she never let anyone touch. This, she said, is for people who build things themselves. I placed it on my table without saying a word. Then I told her what happened, about the photo, the caption, the silence. Her jaw clenched tighter with every detail. She didn't ask for their side of the story. She didn't play devil's advocate. She didn't say, maybe they didn't mean it like that. She simply said, I should have done this a long time ago. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a large brown envelope. I didn't know what was inside yet, but the way her hand trembled, I could feel something big was coming. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. I could feel something strange inside, like it was humming. Grandma May didn't speak while I held it. She just watched me, eyes steady, hands folded on her lap. I sat down on the couch, unsealed it slowly, and pulled out the papers. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. There was a deed at the top, official, notarized, legal. My name was on it. Vanessa, my full name. The property listed was a small lake house in Elkhart Lake, about 2 hours from Milwaukee. I remembered it vaguely from when I was little, rustic, quiet, surrounded by trees. I hadn't been there in over a decade. I looked up at Grandma May, blinking like I'd just woken up underwater. This is yours now, she said, her voice calm but firm. I transferred the deed last week. I was going to wait until my birthday to surprise you, but tonight seems appropriate. My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. She continued before I could stop her. That house is fully paid off. It's worth a little over 400 grand now, mostly because of the location. I was going to split the inheritance down the middle. You know, property for you, cash for Bianca. But after tonight, I've changed my mind. She leaned back in the chair, her eyes locked on me like a judge passing sentence. She gets nothing. I was frozen, not because of the money, or the house, or even the shock, but because I finally understood something. For the first time in my life, someone had looked at what I did, what I built, and decided it mattered. That I mattered. Why now? I finally asked her. She gave me the kind of smile that doesn't soften anything. Because watching you fight for a dream they mocked made me furious. And watching them toast their champagne while you waited alone in this beautiful place made me ashamed. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw drops hitting the deed in my lap. Then she reached into her purse again, this time pulling out a checkbook. I started shaking my head before she even opened it. You've already done enough. But she wasn't asking. I've been saving for years, she said, scribbling numbers without hesitation. This is a gift, not charity. You've earned every cent. She tore the check from the book and handed it to me. I looked down and nearly choked. $200,000. Written in smooth cursive, signed without a second thought. I held it like it might dissolve in my fingers. That should nearly kill your mortgage, she said. The rest? Put it into whatever dream you chase next. I didn't know how to thank her. No words would have been enough. So instead, I hugged her like I used to when I was 7 years old and thought she was made of magic. Maybe she still was. She stayed for another hour. We drank wine, talked about the lake house, and avoided the topic of Bianca like it was a curse that could break the spell. But when it was time to go, she turned to me at the door and said, "Post the photo." "What photo?" "The one we're about to take," she said. "You and me, holding that deed. Post it tonight." I stared at her. "You want me to rub it in their faces?" "No," she said. "I want you to tell the truth. And the truth, my darling, is that you were never the disappointment. They were just too blind to see you shining." So we took the photo. Me in my green dress. Her in her raincoat. Both of us holding the deed like it was a trophy. I posted it with a caption that simply read, "Some gifts are more than money. Some love is louder than blood. Thank you, Grandma May." I expected a few likes. A couple of comments from coworkers, maybe. I didn't expect what happened next. By morning, my phone was in meltdown. Over 70 messages. Dozens of shares. DMs from people I hadn't spoken to in years. My cousin Alicia commented, "Holy crap, this is what real family looks like." An old teacher of mine messaged, "You were always the quiet one. Quiet ones build empires." But not everyone was clapping. At 8:03 a.m., Bianca sent the first message. Really classy move, Vanessa. I hope you're enjoying your 5 minutes of attention. 10 minutes later, Mom chimed in. You need to take that post down. It's causing problems. This isn't how families should handle disagreements. Then Dad messaged me directly. Your grandmother has clearly lost her grip. She's been emotional lately. We'll be talking to her. I didn't respond to any of them, but I did take screenshots. Every word, every guilt trip, every insult, because something told me this was far from over. Later that afternoon, a number I didn't recognize called my phone. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got me. It was Darren's mother. Young lady. She began without even saying hello. I don't know what game you think you're playing, but this behavior is shameful. Excuse me. You humiliated Bianca in front of the entire extended family. And now this post? It's petty. Vindictive. Bianca's pregnant, Vanessa. She doesn't need this stress. My jaw clenched. She wasn't too stressed to post steakhouse photos while I sat alone. There was a pause. Then, that's different. She has a lot on her plate. You know how hard it is to be expecting. I hung up. That night, someone pounded on my door around 9 p.m. It was my father. No call. No warning. Just him standing on my porch with a grim expression. I didn't let him in. You need to understand what you're doing, he said. Your grandmother is unwell. We think someone's been influencing her. Influencing her? I repeated. She gave you property. Cash. She's unbalanced. That's not how she operates. I stared at him through the screen door. Maybe you just never saw how she operates when someone actually deserves something. He tried to say something else, but I locked the door before he could finish. 2 days later, I got another text from Grandma May. Family meeting. My house. Tomorrow at 6. Don't be late. That was all it said. No emojis. No pleasantries. Just instructions. And I had no idea what was coming next. I arrived at Grandma May's house 10 minutes early, but everyone else was already there. Their cars were lined up along the driveway like guests at a wake. It didn't feel like a family meeting. It felt like a trap. I sat in my car for a minute, gripping the steering wheel, trying to decide whether walking in would be brave or stupid. When I finally stepped inside, it was dead silent. Everyone was already seated in the living room. Mom, Dad, Bianca, Darren. Nobody said a word as I walked past them and sat down on the opposite couch, across from the fireplace. Grandma May stood between us, holding a folder in one hand and a glass of tea in the other, like she was about to give a lecture on morality. The air was so thick I could barely breathe. I called this meeting, she began, because some of you seem to think you're entitled to more than you deserve. Bianca immediately sat forward, eyes red like she'd been crying all day. You've been manipulated, Grandma. You don't know what you're doing. Grandma turned to her without blinking. Say that again, but slower. Let's hear just how far you're willing to insult my mind. Bianca looked away. Mom opened her mouth to speak, but Grandma raised a hand before she could even get a syllable out. Not yet. You'll get your turn. She turned to me next. Vanessa, please show them what you brought. I took my phone out of my pocket and opened the gallery. I had every screenshot saved and ready. The messages, the insults, the guilt trips. I tapped through them one by one, holding the screen up for all of them to see. Bianca's voice filled the room. You don't deserve that house. Mom's comment. This isn't how families behave. Dad's message. She's clearly unstable. We'll get it reversed. Then the silence cracked. Grandma exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. This is what you say about me? Your mother? Your grandmother? That I'm unstable? That I've lost my grip? Dad rubbed his forehead but didn't deny it. You've been acting impulsively, May. This whole situation is out of control. Grandma's face hardened. The only thing out of control is your belief that you get to rewrite the consequences of your own cruelty. Then she turned to Bianca. Her voice dropped, but somehow it hit harder. You sent your sister a picture of you toasting wine at a steakhouse while she sat alone in a house she built with her bare hands. And then, when she receives a gift from me, you accuse her of manipulation. What exactly were you hoping to get out of that? Bianca's face was pink now. She tried to look shocked, like she couldn't believe she was being scolded. I'm pregnant, she said quietly. I thought family would understand that I have bigger responsibilities now. I leaned forward and looked her dead in the eyes. You knew I was hosting that night. You knew exactly what you were doing. She glared back. You're not the only person in this family who matters, Vanessa. I didn't want to spend the night in a dump pretending to care about your renovation. I could feel Grandma May's fury rising behind me like a thunderstorm rolling over the lake. You're right, she said coldly. Vanessa isn't the only person who matters, but she's the only one who has earned respect in this room. Then she walked to the mantel, opened the folder in her hands, and pulled out 2 new documents. I want to make something very clear. These are amendments to my will. Bianca, you are no longer entitled to anything under my estate. Darren, that applies to you as well. Greg, Cynthia, you will inherit only my personal belongings. The rest, including my financial holdings, will go to Vanessa. The room broke into chaos. Mom stood up, voice rising like sirens. You can't do this. You're not thinking straight. You're acting like you hate your own daughter. I'm acting, Grandma snapped, like someone who's done being manipulated. Dad looked like he wanted to melt into the couch. Bianca was crying now, loud, dramatic, like a soap opera meltdown. This is disgusting. You're rewarding her for what? For throwing a tantrum online. I finally stood up. No, I'm being rewarded because I worked when no one saw me. Because I stayed quiet while you all celebrated each other. Because I never asked for a damn thing and still got mocked the one time I reached for something. Bianca pointed at me like a child accusing someone of stealing candy. She doesn't even want a family. She just wants attention. She posted that photo for strangers. Grandma stepped in front of her like a shield. No, she posted that photo for herself. Because sometimes, when your own blood leaves you out in the cold, you need the world to remind you you're not invisible. I saw something shift in Dad's eyes then, something brittle, like shame. But it was too late for apologies. The meeting ended with doors slamming and no hugs. Bianca stormed out first, sobbing into her hands. Darren followed without a word. My parents lingered, standing near the doorway like they didn't know how to leave. Grandma didn't even see them out. She just turned to me and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't, because something had changed forever. The next morning, I got a knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, I didn't recognize the woman standing there right away. But then it clicked. Darren's mother, dressed in black like she was attending a funeral. "You did this," she said. "No hello, no greeting, just blame." I didn't respond. She shoved an envelope into my hands. "You want to destroy your family? Congratulations. Here's another piece of mail that proves it." When I opened it later, it was a lawyer's notice. Darren and Bianca were contesting Grandma May's will, trying to claim undue influence, trying to drag me into court. But I wasn't scared, because I had truth, evidence, and for the first time, someone in my corner who saw everything clearly. May called me later that day, voice calm as ever. "Let them try," she said. "They've already lost the only thing that mattered." And she was right, because power didn't come from the house. It didn't come from the money. It came from knowing I didn't need them anymore. For 3 days straight, I kept waiting for the sound of a second shoe hitting the floor. Every time I walked past my front door, I expected to see a subpoena wedged in the frame. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced myself for more legal threats. I couldn't sleep. I barely ate. Even Grandma May's calm voice on the phone didn't settle me this time. "They're bluffing," she kept saying. "They know they don't have a case." But even knowing she was probably right, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still digging, still planning, still desperate enough to push this one step too far. And then, on Friday morning, I got the email that confirmed it. It came from a private investigator. I sat at my kitchen table, still in pajamas, staring at the screen like the words might rearrange themselves into something less horrifying. The investigator had been hired, probably by Darren, maybe by Mom, maybe by both, to look into my financial history, my employment records, even my college transcripts. They had tried to find anything they could use to prove I was manipulating Grandma May for money. And when that didn't work, they went after May directly. The email included photos, zoomed-in shots of her outside her church, at the grocery store, sitting on a park bench near the retirement center. The file attached to the email was titled "Mental Fitness Concerns." I nearly vomited right there on the floor. They were trying to declare her unfit. Not just challenge the will, erase it. That was their play. That was the second shoe. I called her immediately, trying to stay calm, trying not to make my panic obvious. She answered on the second ring. "I know," she said before I could speak. "I've already seen it." My voice cracked. "You're not scared?" "I'm furious," she said. "And I'm going to end this." I asked her what she meant, but she only said one thing before hanging up. "Be at the lake house by 7. Bring your phone, but don't post anything." Yet, I was there by 6:40, heart pounding like I was walking into a battlefield. She met me outside with a folder, 2 lawn chairs, and a bottle of cold white wine. I didn't ask questions. I just followed her to the edge of the dock. For 10 minutes, we sat in silence, watching the sky turn gold over the water. Then she spoke. "They always thought I was weak," she said. "Your mother, your sister, even your father. They thought because I kept quiet, I wasn't watching. But I have watched for years. I saw who helped and who took. I saw who cared and who calculated. She handed me the folder. Inside were medical evaluations, 3 of them, each from a separate doctor, all recent. Each document clearly confirming she was of sound mind and fully capable of handling her affairs. I got those done last month, she said, because I saw this coming. I looked at her, overwhelmed. You're 3 steps ahead of them. She nodded, then added, I'm not finished. The next morning, she posted a video. Not me. Not on my account. On hers. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't send a draft. She just uploaded it. 10 minutes. 1 take. No cuts. She sat in her living room, the deed to the lake house on one side, a cup of tea on the other. And she spoke like the matriarch she had always pretended not to be. She told the story from the beginning. About the night I hosted the housewarming party. About the texts, the dinner, the photo Bianca posted. She pulled no punches. She named names. She quoted messages. She told the world exactly what had been said and done. And then she dropped the bomb. She explained the legal threats, the investigator, the attempt to declare her mentally unfit. She ended with a sentence that burned itself into my memory. If the only way to keep peace is to reward cruelty, then I choose war. The video went viral overnight. Not just because of the drama, but because something about it hit people in the gut. It felt like justice, spoken in soft tones by a woman who had been underestimated one too many times. By Monday morning, local news had picked it up. By Wednesday, an attorney called us, one we didn't hire, saying he wanted to represent May pro bono if they pushed forward with the competency hearing. But they didn't, because something had shifted. Darren deleted all his social media within 48 hours. Bianca set hers to private. My parents didn't respond to the video publicly, but I know they saw it. Everyone saw it. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought the chaos would finally settle. But I was wrong. Because 2 weeks later, I got another envelope. This time, it wasn't from an investigator. It was from a lawyer, May's lawyer. A new will. Signed. Witnessed. Notarized. Effective immediately. I didn't understand what I was reading at first. The lake house, the trust, and her other properties that hadn't changed. But there was something new. May was appointing me as her medical and financial power of attorney. Effective immediately. She had already filed it with the county and submitted copies to her doctors, her bank, and her assisted living center. I'm old, she told me, but I'm not done. And I need someone at the table who's not afraid to throw the damn table. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. But then she added something that made my blood run cold. Bianca's not pregnant. I blinked. What? She lied. There's no baby. There never was. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, frozen, heart pounding in my chest. She told her husband she had a miscarriage. She told her mother it was stress. But the truth is, she lied to win sympathy, to make me feel guilty, to manipulate me into giving her more. I stared at May, stunned. How do you know? She slipped. At the lawyer's office. Said something she didn't mean to. Then she got quiet. Her own husband called me later, in tears. Said he didn't know who she was anymore. The shock settled over me like concrete. Everything made sense now. The urgency. The crocodile tears. The demands. She had fabricated a child to try and steal a house. That was the final twist. Not the legal threats. Not the social media fallout. Not the investigators. It was the lie at the center of everything. A fake pregnancy to justify cruelty. That was what finally killed it. The next time I saw Bianca, it was at a grocery store. She was alone. No bump. No ring. She looked smaller than I remembered, like someone who had been shrinking for years without realizing it. She saw me. I saw her. She turned and walked away without saying a word. And that was the moment I knew this story wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about houses or money or winning arguments. It was about freedom, about never again shrinking myself to fit into the mold someone else built for me, about knowing that the people who once laughed at me no longer had the power to hurt me.